Good evening, everyone. I want to extend my heartfelt appreciation by means of an Arab proverb. What comes from the lips reaches the ears. What comes from the heart reaches the heart. And so this evening, from my heart to yours, I want to paraphrase what my articulate, sensitive champion of human rights colleague David Cole just said. It is our acting together that gives us hope. An Arab proverb, one hand alone does not clap. This is a wonderful gathering of men and women in the Bay Area who have really had a very, very difficult time. I feel very much at home here because I'm from Pittsburgh. You know, and Pittsburgh is sort of an ethnic mix. We've got the hills, the bumps, the grinds, and we've known for our warmth and our hospitality to people. We speak with a funny accent, but we consider ourselves first and foremost good Americans. You know, sitting with Professor Cole brought to mind my former colleagues, Wen Chang and Saul, at Southern Illinois. They were both law professors, and they'd gotten promoted to full professor. And they went out and celebrated, and they each had one too many cups of coffee. And Saul looked at his good friend Wen Chang, and he said, "You know, Wen Chang," he said, "I've been meaning to tell you something. I hate you." And when Chang was taken aback, he says, what do you mean? He says, "You know what I'm talking about, December 7th, 1941, you Pearl Harbor." Saul, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. I am Chinese. Chinese, Vietnamese, Taiwanese, seen one, seen them all, let me have another latte. Well, let me tell you. When Chang looked at his buddy Saul, he says, "There's been something I've been wanting to tell you, Saul, old buddy, old pal, I hate Jews." "What? You heard me, I hate Jews." "What are you talking about? What did we ever do?" "You know what you did. April 13th, 1912, you sank the Titanic. All those people, they into that ocean, they froze to death because of you Jews." Wen Chang, what are you talking about? An iceberg sank the Titanic." Iceberg? Rosenberg? Bloomberg? Goldberg? You seen one, you seen them all. There's a lot of wisdom in that joke. In Nazi Germany, seen one, seen them all. The Holocaust. Here in California, seen one, seen them all. The incarceration of Japanese Americans. Seen one, seen them all when it came to Chinese and the immigration laws. Angel Island, the brutal killing of Vincent Chin in Detroit. Went out for his bachelor party. Vincent Chin was a Chinese American. He was perceived as a Jap, and several unemployed Detroit steelworkers took a baseball bat and beat him to death. African Americans, seen one, seen them all. Let's hang them, take our families to the picnics, and have a party. For more than a century in our country, the Arab-Muslim boogeyman has prowled silver screens and permeated our psyches with horrific visions. After 9/11, seen one, seen them all, Sikhs, Indians, Pakistanis, Hispanics, as long as you looked Arab, you looked Muslim. The Greek Orthodox priest who was attacked the other day, primarily because he looked like an imam. It has not been an easy time for American Muslims. I've been monitoring I sit in South Carolina. I no longer teach, and I sort of boil in my chair. No one calls me anymore because I live on an island and it's too expensive to fly me to New York or to send a TV crew to an island. So I'm sitting there watching the incident with Major Nadal Hassan, the tragedy at Fort Hood, and then I'm watching networks cut away to some radical Muslims in London who say they want an Islamic state. And then they say, in effect, well, this doesn't represent all Muslims. But why are they showing it if it doesn't represent all Muslims? Why is it on the screen? I hear Pat Robertson the same week saying Islam is not a religion and Muslims should be treated like some fascist group. Like some fascist group? Why isn't someone going after Pat Robertson and putting him where he belongs, with the fascists? Or with Fox News? That might be almost as good a place. Then I pick up a newspaper article from Newsmax by Ronald Kessler. I didn't know whether you knew about Mr. Kessler, but he came out with a story. Imams preach jihad and extremism in 10% of the 2,000 mosques in the United States, according to an FBI source. 10%. Headline, main story. So I called my friend in Washington who called the FBI, and of course got a statement from the FBI saying this wasn't true, but the FBI agent wouldn't give his name because he didn't want to get into trouble, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the story persists and the lie endures. And then, of course, we have the infamous intern program. I wish I'd been one of the interns. I'm really kind of jealous that I couldn't be accused of being a spy. I mean, all my life I could tell my grandkids, guess what? I was an intern on Capitol Hill, and I was singled out as a spy. And not only that, you know, we had the incident down in Florida, you know, where they're out on the target range, the Republicans, several Republicans, fundraisers shooting at targets that look like Arab Muslims, shooting at targets. And finally, just a year ago, we had the Obsession DVD that was put into 28 million newspapers in swing states, which was, in my opinion, probably the most dastardly deed ever committed by major American newspapers, that put in that DVD which advanced bigotry and hate without even looking at it, just for the money. Just for the money. 28 million copies tossed into newspapers. That DVD would never have been put into newspapers had it been about radical Christians, radical Jews, radical Mormons. And yet there it went all over the country in swing states. And no one, almost no one, covered the story. No one called it racism, bigotry. There wasn't a big news story based on the fact that America's newspapers were engaged in advancing bigotry by circulating this damaging DVD. My final comment before we get to the optimistic part of the lecture, because I went out the other night and I'm with Khaldoon, and you know, and they all said to me over the phone, they said, you know, Dr. Jack, we got to motivate these people tonight, you know. You can't be too depressing. So I said, all right, I'll swing into that. But first, I want just to share with you how pervasive and how dangerous all of this vilification of Arabs and Muslims is. And I share it with you because you need to support this organization.